we have the winner. We have the winner of the Long Island's Best Tan Abs contest with us. He is an award-winning journalist also, and a contributor to the Gray Zone as well as the Nation magazine. He is not long, believe me, not long. He's going to be gone from the Nation soon. He is the former host and producer for The Real News and Democracy Now! He is the host of the show Pushback with Aaron Mate on the Gray Zone. Please welcome back Aaron Mate. Hi, Aaron.
Hey, Jimmy.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm just thinking about someone out there who's like a budding news person who's going to be inspired tonight to get in shape. You've just lit the fire in someone out there. Jimmy. You've lit the fire in someone out there. I don't know who, but somewhere out there is a news person, a budding news man or woman.
Yes. No,
who will be.
Now, obviously, Aaron, you're an award-winning journalist, and you know it's important to get sun, right? You're getting sun.
It's really important to get sun. It's also important, Jimmy, and we've talked about this, to get a personal trainer and then have features written about you where you talk about your core workout routine. It's really important. Because people who are struggling to survive in this awful world, dealing with all the stresses of life, they want to know about your workout routine, especially your core workout routine. You got to know about your core routine.
Aaron, I'll admit it. My core would need a lot of work. Put it that way. So, and I would tweet out my core workouts. It's like is like kind of a unique device to keep me to it. It was like I was making it, so now I had to do it because I'm tweeting out that I'm going to do some core work. What the fuck happens to people? I think it's when you get over $1 million. Something about after over $1 million, there's just shit starts flying in your head.
Jimmy,
and for people who don't know who we're talking about, we're making fun of Chris Hayes. Who had an article written about his workout routine. Which I sent to Jimmy because it was just so funny. And that you think anybody needs to read about your workout routine. If you're posting about your workout routine on social media, unless you're a trainer, if you're a physical trainer, or you're someone who's, you want to psych yourself up and motivate, like that's cool. But if you're like a news anchor and you think people care about your workout routine with your personal trainer, no. Sorry.
All right. We're here with serious journalist and tan man, Aaron Mate. And we brought him on because there's a story breaking. So Russiagate, we told you that the FBI lied many, many times to secure FISA warrants on a guy named Carter Page. And then I learned through Bill Binney, former NSA codebreaker, is that there's a 2-hop rule when you get a FISA warrant. What is that? That means that you have a warrant on this guy, right? So Carter Page, we got a warrant on him. So now we can listen to every phone call he makes, every text and every email. We got it, right? Now, anybody he talks to, we also can listen to. That's the 2-hop rule. So if he talks to anybody inside the Trump administration, they can listen to anything. So that's the 2-hop rule. Is that correct, Aaron? To your knowledge?
That's correct. You can hop to anybody else, and you also can hop backwards too. So you can go backwards and look at who Carter Page and who anybody Carter Page communicated with, what they talked about.
I didn't know that. I didn't know you could go backwards. So anyway, so the FBI lied, and it was revealed. No one will really talk about that on mainstream news. They'll mention it on page 37 of the New York Times, but they won't. It's not the headline, FBI caught lying in Russiagate probe, which is what it should be. But now they're doing an investigation of the people who are investigating Trump and William Barr. They're starting to now find criminality. Former FBI attorney to plead guilty for altering email in the Russia probe. Former FBI attorney Kevin Klein-Smith is preparing to plead guilty to altering an email used to obtain a surveillance warrant on former Trump campaign aide Carter Page. This is the first concrete result of a review Attorney General William Barr ordered in the FBI's handling of the investigation into contacts between Donald Trump's 26th campaign and Russia. Kevin deeply regrets having altered the email. It was never his intention to mislead the court or his colleagues.
No.
That's the double CK right there. As he believed the information he relayed was accurate. Kleinsmith's lawyers said in a statement, and that's all a lie. If you know what the FBI does, they're professional liars, and there's an example of it.
Sounds like he was overly confident.
He was overly confident. Yeah. Justice Department Inspector Michael Horowitz also found the warrant and 3 renewals were riddled with errors and omissions. The findings led the Justice Department to rescind 2 of the renewal warrants. So they were giving renewal FISA warrants, and the Justice Department, after they found it, they took them away. Okay. When they say riddled with errors, that the warrants renewals were riddled with errors and omissions, they mean lies and lies of omissions. They don't mean errors like there should have been a comma and, they had the wrong name. They transfixed a phone number. That's not what they mean by error. They mean deliberate lies to mislead the court so they could do a criminal investigation criminally. So they themselves were the criminals. And by omissions, they mean lies by omission. By information that would have been exculpatory or blown a hole through their case. They omitted that. They're not supposed to do that. That's illegal. That's why someone should be going to jail. And hopefully it's this guy Kleinsmith. It should be James Comey. In their explanation of the allegations against Kleinsmith, prosecutors indicated that Kleinsmith altered a June 2017 email that was used in one of the paid surveillance renewals. The alteration followed a discussion with colleagues about whether Page had a history as a CIA source. Mm-hmm. Relying on the altered email, the supervisory FBI agent, Kleinsmith, signed and submitted the application to the court on June 29, 2017, prosecutors said. Kleinsmith was removed from special counsel Robert Mueller's probe after Horowitz discovered internal messages that revealed he espoused anti-Trump sentiments, though all officials have argued that their personal political views did not influence their investigative decisions. So let me just break it down for you. What this means is that the FBI was lying. They knew that Carter Page worked for the CIA, and they told the court that he didn't. And why is that important? Because if he did, then that would really screw up their case against him being a Russian asset. Because he's working for the CIA. So let's bring in Aaron Matei. Aaron, who's won awards with his meticulous debunking of Russiagate conspiracy theory. What do you have to say about this?
Yeah, well, it's really funny that they're still claiming that he made some kind of innocent mistake that his lawyers did when what he was doing, as you point out, was fraud. And the fraud is important. This was they spied on Carter Page 4 times in terms of they got warrants on him 4 times. And the first time they used it, they applied for a spy warrant on Carter Page. They cited the Steele dossier, none other than the garbage so-called intelligence that was paid for by Donald Trump's opponent, Hillary Clinton, a fact that the FBI also hid from the FISA court. They didn't tell them that, this intelligence so-called intelligence we're relying on happens to come from the campaign that Donald Trump is running against. So they concealed that.
So that would be an omission. That would be an example of one of their omissions.
That's an omission, yeah.
So
yeah.
because if they would It's not a lie if you don't tell, but if you withhold it, it's a sin by omission. It's a lie by omission, because if they would have made that information available to the court probably wouldn't have granted that, knowing that information was actually opposition research paid for by Hillary Clinton. Okay.
Yeah. Imagine if like Dinesh D'Souza or whoever wrote up some crazy document alleging that Hillary Clinton is controlled by Iran and is being blackmailed by them, and the FBI took that and used that as a basis to spy on a member of Hillary Clinton's campaign. Everybody would be understandably upset. Well, that's basically what the FBI did here, but against Trump. And because this has gotten so partisan, and because Russiagate was such a elite-centric obsession, we're not supposed to look at these facts because they're inconvenient. And now we learn more about what this guy Kleinsmith did, where the FBI didn't just rely on the Steele dossier, they also relied on lies. So when it came time to renew Carter Page's FISA warrant for like the third or fourth time, Kleinsmith was told by the CIA that yes, he was our source, and that Carter Page was also giving us intelligence about Russia. Kleinsmith basically doctored that, changed the wording, and then submitted that to the FISA court. So he committed fraud. And the question is why? Was this something he just did on his own? I find that very hard to believe, that he was just some rogue agent here. Kleinsmith was involved in a lot of other aspects of the Crossfire Hurricane investigation, the investigation into the Trump campaign. And so the notion that he was acting on his own and that this was just a lie he decided to do himself, I find that hard to believe. But John Durham, the prosecutor in this indictment today, doesn't give us any information, which is unfortunate because we'd love to know more. But on the other hand, it's a striking contrast to all the indictments we got from the Mueller team.
Yeah.
Where they would write these like elaborate, they were basically content producers. You know how like people work in content, they produce content for like TV, whatever, film. That's what the Mueller team basically was. They were content producers for the media to write these long indictments suggesting that there was some grand conspiracy plot until you get to the very last section where it reads, oh yeah, and he was indicted for a false statement about a totally trivial matter, such as like getting a date wrong or not remembering whether or not sanctions were discussed. So in contrast to like this innuendo and narrative management by the Mueller team, Durham gives us nothing today. Pretty much, he doesn't give us any indication as to what Kleinsmith's motivation was, whether this was done in cooperation with someone else. So we'll have to wait and see. But for anybody who watched this case, as we did from the start, we could tell that it was a fraud based on how disingenuous the Mueller team was and just how ridiculous these Trump-Russia conspiracy allegations were. It's a first step towards, hopefully, some kind of accountability.
I wish my computer, I didn't leave it out in the rain when I did in June, because I would very quickly right now, I would go to the video of the Inspector General saying that there were many, no one should feel, what was the term? I'm trying to think of the term, absolved. And no one should feel absolved of wrongdoing here. That there's lots of problems. He didn't say anybody was a criminal, but he said a lot of malfeasance was happening. Again, I'm paraphrasing. I wish I had the video because it was very powerful. He pushed back against the senator saying, no, nobody's exonerated here. This exonerates no one. The FBI, the head, James Comey, is not exonerated, and that everybody's got their hand in this fuckery. And that's basically what the Inspector General was saying in Congress. And if I didn't leave my computer out in the rain, I could show you that instead of telling you about it, and it would be a much better segment. But I apologize, I'm falling down on the job. But you remember that, right, Aaron? What I'm talking about?
I do remember that, and people need to remember how all this was obvious from the start, but there was just too few people in media willing to tell the truth. And that's why, Jimmy, I don't know, if you go back and look at all the coverage we did, to toot our own horn for a second, we were like all the segments we did on your show, and also when you were at TYT on aggressive progressives, which I like to call actual progressives, we were pointing out from the start just how fraudulent everything was and how the Mueller team was duping people into believing that there was something there, but there never was. And we were also warning from the start that when all this inevitably collapsed, because it would eventually, then it would hand Trump not only the gift of exoneration, but then Trump would then dig into how all this actually began. and would investigate the investigators.
Yep. Yes.
And would use these revelations for his reelection campaign. So these people who pretended that they were opposing Trump by championing this dumb Russian conspiracy theory handed him a massive gift. And the indictment today is the gift that keeps on giving for Trump, because this is probably not the last one.
That's right.
Some people will like to think that this is, but I don't think that this stops at Kevin Kleinsmith. I imagine that the fraud continues. And whether there's even more indictments or there's just a report showing just how disingenuous the Mueller team was, I mean, no matter what, this will be good for Trump because there's so much to cover. These people lied over and over. The basis of the investigation was ridiculous. They got a tip from an Australian diplomat that this low-level Trump campaign volunteer, George Papadopoulos, heard some kind of suggestion that Russia might be able to help them. Didn't even mention the stolen emails that are at the heart of this entire Russia thing. So they got the vaguest tip possible. They launched an investigation based on that. And after they launched the investigation, then they were like, all right, well, who else in the Trump campaign might be associated with Russia? All right, well, there's this guy, Carter Page. He says nice things about Russia in public. Let's spy on him. And Paul Manafort, he worked in Ukraine. And yeah, you know, he was actually pushing an anti-Russian policy in Ukraine, but let's forget that and just investigate him anyway. And Michael Flynn, yeah, he went to this dinner, this gala in public along with a lot of other people in 2015 for RT, the Russian network. So yeah, why not? Let's investigate him as well. And they continue to pursue this with fraud after fraud, relying on the Steele dossier, lying to the FISA court. In the case of Michael Flynn, they were going to drop the case, but then they decided to entrap him. Then when they couldn't even detect him lying to them at all, they basically lied about what he said to them.
Yes.
And they claimed in his indictment that he lied to them about sanctions, when we only recently got the transcript of the Flynn-Kislyak call, his call with the Russian ambassador, which he was indicted about. And they don't even talk about sanctions. It's mentioned once in passing, and Flynn doesn't even say anything. So there are countless examples of them withholding information from the public and lying about it. There's, of course, CrowdStrike, where the CrowdStrike president told the House Intelligence Committee, yeah, we actually don't have any evidence that Russian hackers took anything. But we never heard about that when all this was happening. We only got this a few months ago, so nearly 3 years after he said it. So it's just fraud after fraud after fraud, and we'll see how much malfeasance Durham can uncover and how much Trump can capitalize on this, which I think will be substantially.
The silver lining is that half of the country now kind of realizes that the FBI are a bunch of professional fucking liars. And you better not get on the wrong side of them, because they'll use every illegal, unethical way to put you in jail if they don't like you, because the last thing the FBI is doing is defending the Constitution. What they're doing is fuckery on a daily basis. They're a propaganda organization run for its own benefit. They are not out there helping America. The FBI are a bunch of lying cocksuckers, and this reveals them to be that from the tippy top. James Comey, the worst. Go watch his interview that Chris Wallace dismantled him. Chris Wallace dismantled James Comey. Chris Wallace, the bad Wallace, dismantled James Comey effortlessly. They're all corrupt, just like everyone in Congress is corrupt, just like everyone at MSNBC and CNN is corrupt, just like everybody at the editorial board of the Washington Post and the New York Times is corrupt. Corrupt. The only thing is the New York Times can't directly put you in jail, but they can write a bullshit story that gets you arrested. And they can also write like a bullshit story like this. How Politico wrote this? Did you see the mealy mouth? They didn't even tell you what actually happened. That's why people have to come to this show, and so we can tell them what actually happened in this story. Oh, Kleinsmith said he didn't. What? The guy altered a document that completely a falsified document that they presented to a court to get the most insidious kind of spying you can get in America. That's unconstitutional. And they had to lie to get it on purpose. And they did it 17 times. They lied 17 times, at least. And they got this guy for one of those lies. One. Okay. And by the way, you're right, Aaron. We debunked this in real time. It wasn't hard. I was doing it at aggressive progressives, or as you call it, actual progressives at the Young Turks. While they were doing Russiagate bullshit at the top of their fucking lungs, I was doing good journalism on the regular in their own studio, and they couldn't give a shit.
Yeah.
And still to this day, they don't give a shit. Still to this day. I had Cenk Uygur in here and begged him to stop Russiagating. It hurts the left. It's not going to help anything. It's going to help Trump. I begged him. Still fucking doing it 100%.
And that's the saddest part, is that progressives who I think are genuinely committed to a better world got enlisted, got duped into parroting a conspiracy theory, a crazy fixation that was designed in part to preserve the power of the neoliberals that progressives oppose. Because after 2016, the obvious lesson was that this should become the party of Bernie Sanders. A fake anti-establishment candidate won the election by presenting himself as being the person who was going to drain the swamp and stop foreign wars. That was all con. So the obvious lesson is, why not give people a genuine anti-establishment candidate? But doing that would have threatened the power of the people who lost the election. So they came up with this Russia thing to help deflect any responsibility, any self-reflection. And they successfully enlisted people like Cenk and other progressives into their cause. And it's sad that even now, even after all its collapse, they still refuse to acknowledge that. But whatever. It just means that we're not going to stop doing what we do, and there will be plenty more opportunities to point out just what a fraud this was, because we have not learned the last of it.
Is MSNBC still Russiagating at the top of their lungs?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Top of their lungs. And anybody who guest hosts for them, also, FYI, is forced to Russiagate at the top of their lungs, and they do it for money.
Yeah. Yeah.
They do it. People who previously said they didn't believe in Russiagate, they get a guest host job on MSNBC, and they are forced to Russiagate, and they do it gladly. Why? Because they don't have integrity, and they're fucking shallow people. That's why. Politics and show business attracts the most mediocre of people to fucking begin with. At least some people have talent in show business.
And Jamie, what bothers me is, for anybody who couldn't see it before, anybody who couldn't see how this was being used to prop up the neoliberal centrists of the party, to push the party even more to the right in basically, defining anti-Trump resistance as being willing to be even more aggressive against Russia than Trump wanted to be, impeaching him over the fact that he briefly froze some weapon sales to Ukraine, just as Obama basically did when Obama refused to sell weapons to Ukraine. Even if you couldn't see this, and also worshiping the CIA and the FBI, these organizations that have been attacking the left for decades, which is what they're pretty much designed to do. Even if you couldn't see it then, when on the eve of the Nevada caucus, when they Russiagated Bernie, when Bernie was doing well, and they brought out this leak that Russia was favoring Bernie Sanders, which is the motivation is so transparent. People inside the national security state don't like Bernie Sanders. So what are they going to do? They'll just say that Russia wants him to win, and every liberal will freak out, and MSNBC will air this nonstop. And this means that they don't even tell us how Russia wants Bernie to win, what they're going to do for it. It doesn't matter. It's like a monster under the bed. They can just say that this thing exists, and everybody is conditioned to believe it because we're supposed to worship what the intelligence community says, especially about Russia. So they use it to sabotage Bernie, and still, even Bernie himself won't stop Russiagating, and Bernie's advisors won't see how this was used against them as well. It's tragic. It's just really
Bernie
tragic.
is the ultimate cuck. Bernie is the ultimate cuck, as Kyle Kalinske says. He didn't say ultimate; he just called him a cuck.
Ultimate was your flourish.
Yeah, I put the ultimate on it because I've seen cuckold videos, and none of those people have a following. None of those guys in the hoods and getting kicked by the ladies in the nuts or roped up or whatever, none of them have a movement behind them. They're just cucks. So what I'm saying is Bernie could be topping from the bottom, and he's not. How's things going for you? When I say, the nation still publishes your work, and your work is always factual, It wins awards, but everybody at the Nation hates it except the editor. Because you're making them look like the children that they are, Aaron. You realize that's why they don't want those articles in the Nation magazine, because the people who read their bullshit for the last 3 fucking years will then read your article and go, what? You mean everything I've been reading is bullshit? All these other people aren't really journalists? That's why they don't want you printed in the fucking Nation magazine, because it reveals their mediocrity. And thank God there's a real editor over there who isn't a mediocre. That's the only one, I think, in the entirety of fucking journalism. That's one. That's it. There's one in the entire country. One.
There are people at the Nation who don't agree with my views, but look, one of its slogans is the place for debate on the left, and they allow debate. It's great. It's good.
That's great.
I'm happy that they publish people whose viewpoints differ than mine, and I appreciate that they welcome my point of view. Recently, they published a piece I did about the OPCW scandal, which you can't, where you've covered this, where the OPCW, the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, basically there was a cover-up inside there alleged by 2 whistleblowers where they investigated an alleged chemical attack in Syria. They found evidence that basically the attack was staged, it was a fraud. And the OPCW then dismissed their evidence to accuse Syria in order to justify Trump's airstrikes on Syria, which he did based on the chemical weapons allegations. Yes. And the Nation, there's been a complete media censorship of this story, complete media blockade. Every so-called adversarial website, including The Intercept, has ignored the story, even though they initially promoted the pro-Trump, pro-war narrative. But the Nation let me publish an article about these whistleblowers, and where else can you do that in mainstream adjacent media right now? So I'm very grateful for that. Nowhere.
You can't do it anywhere. That's it. That's why I said hats off to Katrina Vanden Heuvel over at The Nation. She's a real editor, and she does that. She does not betray their motto of the place for debate on the left, if that's what their motto is. I didn't even know that's what it was, but it's nice to see everyone else is betraying them. Even places like The Intercept, just garbage when it comes to the reporting on Russia. Just absolute garbage. Can't do as good a job as a pothead in his garage. They're just the worst, and they do it on purpose, which makes it, like, if we were getting it wrong accidentally, that's one thing. They're getting it wrong on purpose, and they know they're doing it wrong now.
They do. It's sad.
They know what they're doing. They're gutless cowards. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, Glenn Greenwald, out the gate, was one of the first Russiagate skeptics. And that got The Intercept a lot of negative attention from mainstream publications, everybody attacking The Intercept. So to compensate for Glenn's accurate journalism, they went full Russiagate with everybody else. They brought in James Risen and other people to attack Julian Assange, to push the Russiagate narrative, just shameless for the crime of publishing Glenn Greenwald's accurate journalism. It's a really funny window into how the media works, even so-called adversarial media.
Media is garbage in America. It's absolute garbage. And it's a good thing you're doing it independently so you could actually do real news. All right, well, Aaron Mate, I always hope I'm saying your name right. Thanks for coming on. And tell everybody over at the Gray Zone we said hello.
I will. Thanks, Jimmy.
Okay.
Bye, Steph.
Bye.
Hey, everybody, this is the part where I tell you where all our live shows are, but there aren't any. And then this is why I tell you to join our premium program and get extra content, but nobody's got a fucking job. So just enjoy the video.